Ladies and gentlemen, I'm controversial. Not so much yet because I'm not very well known at the moment, but I mean, I can see the view metrics on my stories. I'm already getting several, I've already gotten like over 500 views each on Rebel Alliance's Death Note and Rational Planning. So I feel like I'm going to become at least somewhat well known. Might not become like a huge name, but I'll become somewhat well known. And because of a single story, I will probably be known as an anti Semite, and I will probably be hated by a lot of people. So let's talk about that. First things first, for any family members and loved ones who are listening, I'm fine. I'm kind of crazy now. Being crazy is sort of the only way I can adapt to being hated by so many people, but I'm not going to harm myself. Instead, I'm just going to write and write and write a bunch of stories because they are in my head and they demand to be taken out and put to paper. And people seem to enjoy them, so there you go. So let's talk a little bit about what it's like being hated, especially when your work is misunderstood. I've already commented on the work that shall not be named, and I mean it when I say I never want to publicly comment on it again, because if I even say a single word, it'll just be nothing but that for the rest of my career. So instead, I want to talk about what it feels like. You really don't have a chance to explain yourself. You can try, but when people have the notion of what you are, and when people see like the surface notion of what your work is, it kind of just basically sets the perception permanently. Now, I've done my best to mitigate that by putting the work on Space Battles, where there's always new stories coming out and it tends to get buried, and keeping it off AO3 and fanfiction.net. But even so, it's still going to get a lot of attention. I'm still going to get a lot of hatred. I've done my best to counter the narrative that I'm an anti-Semite by writing cordyceps and Nazis, which I had a lot of fun writing, by the way. It was really fun writing like Nazis getting torn apart by infected. So I mean, like, to me, my actions indicate that I'm not an anti-Semite, but because of the way the work is written, I can see why people would think that way. Yeah, you notice I'm not like directly commenting on it. That's because I don't want to comment on its contents. But I will comment on how it affected me. You feel afraid, very much so, because you never know what a person in the street is going to think. Because several hundred people have read my story now, and I don't know if those people are in California or not, but they could be. They could be nearby. And, I've shared my stories with people I know, friends, families, former friends, former associates, and I don't know what they think because I've very deliberately avoided, kind of like, I've avoided looking at any reactions to it since I was banned from the two forums I advertised it on, because that to me was an indication that the perception is set. I'm an anti-Semite in the eyes of many people, even though I know in my heart that I'm not. So that's just kind of the way it is. Now, what can I do about this? Because, like, if people like, Lindsay Ellis and Justine Sacco and whoever else has been canceled is any indication, once the narrative is set, it's really hard to change it. So what can I do? Well, I'm going to do two things. One, I'm never writing a Jewish character again. I recently published Dawn of the Wolves. You may have noticed that Dina's not in that. That is because I am not doing that. Not of anti-Semitism, but just because I am straight up afraid to do it. Second of all, I'm just going to keep writing. I'm going to do my best to bury those two works that I published, the original and the counter to the narrative, and I'm just going to keep building this big, expansive universe. Now, there's always going to be this controversy surrounding me if I become extremely famous, which is a possibility, I guess, but it's never going to go away. It's always going to haunt me, and if I read news articles about me, if I keep up with the commentary about me, it's going to drive me insane. So I'm just going to use the internet for a handful of things. I'm going to use it to upload my works, publish my works, advertise them on social media. I'm going to use them to listen to my playlist on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. I'm not going to follow the news. I'm not going to read messages or reviews that I get, because ultimately that's really the only way you can survive. I guess this is a miniature cancellation. I'm not really well known enough for it to be an outright cancellation, although I might be at some point. But yeah, this is a miniature cancellation, and I really have to. I really just kind of have to plug down and write in order to get over it and do my best to cope with it. I don't know what's going to happen if I don't have enough money to stay in this hotel, but I will cross that bridge when I come to it. In the meantime, I'm just going to write and write and write. Speaking of which, I would appreciate it if some people would consider the voluntary $3 Patreon. For legal reasons, I can't provide you any services because, it's not my intellectual property. But if you feel like donating, that would be really appreciated. I mean, if you don't have to, I'm going to keep writing the stories regardless, but it would be very helpful. So there you go. I am a controversial and often outright hated author, and will become more so over time. but I'm just going to keep writing and keep writing and keep writing and being a crazy little hermit, because I guess that's just what I am now. Have a good day, everyone.